My Lords, the British people have decided to leave the European Union. The Commons have passed this bill unamended. We pride ourselves in this House on scrutinising and revising bills. But what is there to scrutinise? What is there to revise? This is a two-clause bill. It is not our job, as my noble friend Lord Lang said yesterday, to adorn legislation. If we amended this bill, we would be adding to it. And that, my Lords, is just about all there is to say on the matter. But listening to all the doom and gloom in this debate, I am reminded of what Woody Allen once said. Mankind stands at a crossroads. One path leads to despair and utter hopelessness, the other to total extinction. But we must make the wise choice. And that all too often is how we've been talking about the future. So being a rational optimist, let me take just a few minutes of your time, my Lords, less than 6, I promise, to strike a note of hope. You might call it Project Cheer. Starting with why I, for one, am more sure now than I was on the 24th of June that the British people have done the right thing. Voting to leave the EU last June has had precisely the opposite effect of what Project Fear told us would happen. Instead of an emergency budget and an immediate and profound shock to the economy, a loss of confidence, a drying up of inward investment, a collapse in the stock market, all of which were promised if we voted leave, we have seen an acceleration of growth, now the fastest in the G7. Record highs on the stock market. Votes of confidence from Apple, Google, Siemens, Nissan, Snapchat, McDonald's, IBM and many other companies. A manufacturing revival. A narrowing of the trade deficit as exports pick up, thanks to a welcome devaluation of the pound. And the humiliation of economic forecasters at the IMF, the Bank of England, the Treasury, the European Commission and elsewhere. Now, I know it is early days, but to those who say we face disaster when we actually leave, I say, Project Fear having failed last year, such warnings cut even less ice with the British public now. Besides, we are rarely ambitious and positive enough about our future. Leaving the exchange rate mechanism in 1992 proved a turning point, not a catastrophe. Staying out of the euro turned out to be a triumph, not a trauma. Moreover, it is becoming clearer by the day why the European Union is stagnating while the rest of the world grows. Why so many EU countries have had a lost decade, while some African and Asian countries have doubled the size of their economies. The centralised, top-down dirigism of Brussels is stifling innovation at the behest of big companies, big bureaucracies and big pressure groups. The Brussels system is hamstrung by an overzealous version of the precautionary principle that is too pessimistic about future possibilities, too complacent about present systems, and too convinced that bureaucrats know better. From the Reformation to Napoleon's continental system and after, this country has throughout its history done better when it looked outward to the world more than inward to the continent. We are an island, not a peninsula. Perhaps in the 1960s it was just about understandable that we should try to retreat inside a tariff fortress in order to get access to a single regulatory zone. But today, in the age of container shipping, budget airlines, the internet, we have a global language, we are a science superstar, we have immense soft power, we have championed free trade for generations, we have lent the world our systems of law and finance, of medicine and technology, of ideas and discovery. My final point, my Lords, is this. In Theresa May we have a Prime Minister who intends Brexit to be a global, outward advance, not an isolationist defensive retreat. Now, I know there are those on the other side of the referendum divide who say that we globalists only won the referendum because we were supported by people with a darker agenda, who wanted to pull up the drawbridge, go back to the 1950s, who wanted to stop all immigration, not just control it. We are told, what have you unleashed? Are you sure you know how to ride the tiger of populism? Well, I say to those who take this view, look at what the government says, look at what it does. It is run by the globalists, not the isolationists. And if you want to strengthen their hand, our hand, If you want to make sure the globalists get their way and not the protectionists, then come on over and join us. Bring as many of the 48% as you can, and we will bring as many of the 52%. To echo what my noble friend Lord Cormac just said, together we can build an unassailable majority for an outward, confident, ambitious country, trading and thriving, inventing and discovering, leading and enlightening the world as never before. This is a great country with a great history, but we've hardly started. Yeah.